So what I thought we could do today for our warm-up is we can do a series of little squares, little boxes, just getting increasingly large, just to get our arms moving so that we're making marks on the paper. Is that working? The camera's working? Camera's connected? I'm gonna be so nervous about the technology on this one, because I think it's a dodgy USB cable, but basically, okay, so we can do circles, increasingly large circles. I like warm-ups which are very efficient on paper, because rather than using up loads of paper for the warm-up, and so this is really efficient because it packs loads of lines into little areas. Basically, when I tested this new setup, I tested it like 10 times, and I would say that it worked well 4 times. So those are not great odds. Let's do some triangles to warm up. Just let me know in the comments if you try not to breathe into the mic. Okay, good feedback, thank you. Okay, cool. Okay, triangles getting increasingly large. Cool. Karim says, so you can see me and you can see the reference. That is awesome. And so one of the cool things with this new setup is now I can, oops. Now I can show you guys stuff right on the reference, you know, like that. So that's why I hope this new setup will work, but the new setup has other problems with it. So anyway, just warming up still, just getting ourselves making some marks. Maybe we could vary the strength, so we could do a strong one, and then we could do a really light one. And just try and vary the strength of our squares. Okay, I think it's holding up so far, but I don't want to speak too soon. This is good, it's working, the camera's working. All right, so yeah, we're going to be drawing hands, and I'd love to hear maybe a little bit about how you guys tackle hands, because I've got, for today, you know, there's lots of different things you can do and ways you can think of and you can approach your hands. And we're going to look at one way today. And I'd love to hear any sort of things that you guys do. Maybe you avoid them completely, which is one strategy, or yeah, what kind of stuff do you guys do when you're trying to draw hands? If you let me know in the comments. And then we're going to start on this first pose here. So what I think we're going to aim for today, because it's good to know, I just did a quick sketch before this to try and kind of show what I've got in mind, is just something like that. So it's not we're going to do a few different hands and we're going to try and draw them quick, but we're going to try and draw them in terms of really just the simple, yup, avoid them, says Maria. Okay, cool. So hopefully this will help a little bit. Boxes, put the hands in shadows. Okay, awesome. Mittens, yeah. Simplified by planes is pretty similar, similar to what we're going to be thinking about today. Draw your own hands. Yeah, that's a great way to practice, is draw your own hands. General shape. Combining the fingers into one shape. Yes, that's kind of similar to what we're going to look at today. So just mark out the edges here. Okay, so let's get started on this one. You know what, for this first one I might leave out the timer because we're just going to see how this first one goes. I'm going to spend a bit of time on it to explain the principle, and then on the next ones we'll try and do them a bit quicker. So one thing to know, not for the hand but for the wrist, is it's often very boxy. So there's like a side plane and then a top plane on it. So that's really useful because sometimes the box is a little bit twisted or whatever, but you kind of always know that this area here is going to be a boxy shape coming into the hand. And then you can kind of build up the sort of palm section of the hand, often with like a side plane. So, you can find a side plane and again, like a top plane, right? So just trying to simplify it into planes. And then here's the big thing that I want to talk about today, which some people kind of hinted at earlier, which is you can find the lines across the knuckles. So whether often it's a curving line, but if you can find the curve through the knuckles and the fingertips, that's really, really going to help. So I'm just going to try and, my iPad's at a funny angle here. But if you can find some of these curves, that's going to help so much to build up the hand. So I guess the process would be something like, I mean, if you're drawing the figure, maybe you started from this boxy wrist, or whatever, or you've built up the side plane and top plane for the palm section, and then you're gonna, because the area of the hands that I think is probably the toughest is the fingers, right? And so if you can, what we're going to look for is these curves, and we're going to think about sometimes the way the fingers are is like, it doesn't really lend itself to this, but in this case it really does, and very often it does. Sometimes 3 of them can be grouped together, and then one of them's kind of straggling, or one of them's out on its own. This one's kind of a middle case where you got a group of fingers and then the index finger is kind of on the same plane, but slightly different. So maybe we could treat that one separately. So we're going to try and draw it a few times, and we're just trying to capture the simple essence of it, right? We're not trying to do some big elaborate drawing of it. So why don't we draw the top of that palm section, and maybe the side of the palm section, and we can go back and refine that later. But this is the part that I'm on about for that first row of knuckles. There's that curve across them. And then why don't we go down the middle finger, because the index finger's a little bit on its own. So if we go down from that down here to this knuckle, and then have a curve there, and then this one, and another one there. That's just to get us started off. And then, we could add on a shape for the index finger too. Now, one thing that I noticed when I was doing that quick sketch of this hand is, I think it'd be very tempting to make the little finger not give it much space because it's the little finger. But look how deep into the shape that goes. So we probably don't want to underdo that. So we kind of got our knuckles going, and there's also a nice little fold here that I think is worth capturing. So we could put that in too. But let's get that knuckle for the little finger in, and get it in quite deep. And then the next one. And then this one is actually the middle finger here. Okay. So because we already kind of established where the ends of these things are going in relation to each other, I think it makes it just a little bit easier. And don't worry if things are going wrong, because we're going to do this same hand a few different times. I made this too big. And then for the wrist, we talked about it. There's the side plane like that, and then some kind of top plane. So it's like a boxy shape. Okay. So that's all we're really trying to go for today, is a really simplified attempt at drawing these hands. So I hope that's making some sense. Let me know in the comments once you're ready. I'm sure everyone's busy drawing right now. You can hear my daughter's woken up.
Ken, when you draw on the reference, you might need to say you're drawing on the reference.
Oh yeah, okay.
So people are like saying there's nothing on the screen.
Oh right. Okay, yes. Sometimes I'm drawing on the iPad, which will show up on the reference on the left. So when I was talking about the knuckles earlier, you can see it on the reference, a yellow line on the reference. I was meaning that line and that line and that kind of thing. Okay. So how you guys getting on? I'm going to have another go at this hand. So we're just going to keep trying it because we're just trying to do simple hands. So I think it worked okay to do a line across the top of the palm section and then come down for the middle finger, because I do think the index finger is kind of off on its own a little bit behind that middle finger. But then the key is that line across the knuckles, and another one here. Oh, and the side plane on the sort of palm section. And then we can bring one down and have one for the sort of bottom. For this, on the reference, you'll see a yellow line there. So we can do that. And one thing that's useful here is to find the line that goes around the knuckle like that curve, because it's slightly foreshortened and it's going to help us understand that volume. But so we've also got the index finger off on its own, and we've got these knuckles. And that little finger, the knuckle goes pretty deep, and a little fold there, and then keeping everything else really simple. So this is where I'm talking about that line that goes around the knuckle there for that little finger. And then just split up the knuckles here. It's quite a cool reference photo, I think, for practicing hands, because it really demonstrates this particular idea with this line across the knuckles. The other references we're going to use are from Crocky Cafe later, but this one is from a site called Pexels, and it just has copyright-free photos. Anyway, no need to do shading and all that unless you really want to, but the idea is to establish the basic shapes of the hands. So try and use really simple marks. We're not going to try and render it or shade it. We're just trying to get, like, we could even try this maybe with straight lines. It almost is a series of straight lines already, so maybe we could try it with straight lines like we did before. Okay. I hope you guys are doing all right. Let me know in the comments if you're doing okay, if you're if what I'm saying is making any sense. And then we'll try one which is just straight lines only. Let's see if that works. I'm confused about where I should look, so I'm messing it up pretty bad. Do you mean look on the hand? Like which bits to look at? So if you look at the reference again, I'll just point out the things that we're looking for. So if you look on the reference, you should see some yellow lines pop up like this. So coming down the wrist, there's a sort of top plane and then a side plane here. So that's for the wrist. It's kind of boxy, right? On this palm section of the hand, there's kind of a side plane. It's kind of unclear where's the top plane, where's the side plane, but it doesn't matter too much. And so there's a side and a top again. And then So it's kind of like two boxes so far. And then you've got the curve across the top of the knuckles here. And then we're coming, so when I was starting the drawing, I chose to go with this and then come down here. And then from there, you can get these knuckles and these. You can also come across the top and down the side and establish that side plane of the palm section. But what kind of happens is that these three fingers, this bit all becomes like one big plane. And then you can come down here and get this. So you've already got that line. You can come down and get this shape and get that plane. And the index finger is kind of on its own. So that can be drawn separately, poking out from behind that middle finger. I really hope that makes sense. Mine looks like a hermit crab. No worries, Mick. We'll try it again, yeah? We'll try it again. So let's try one more time. So we're going to come across the top of the palm section to that middle knuckle there, this one. I've put a yellow mark on the reference there. So that's where we are. And then we're going to come down. And we're going to come across those knuckles here. And then we can go across those first knuckles, the knuckles at the top. And we can establish that side plane of the hand, of the palm section. And then we can also go down here, so where I put that yellow line on the reference. I drew a shovel. Oh dear. So that is going to come down here, and then we're going to come across. And I reckon what we could do from here is that little finger knuckle, and then that third finger knuckle, and then the middle finger one. And then we can do that index finger that's kind of poking out behind everything. There's this curve around this knuckle, which is useful to see, that wrapping line, or kind of like a cross contour line. And then there's the tip of the little finger behind it. And then for the wrist, there's the side plane and the top plane, right? So, and then if you want to kind of show where the fingers, the actual fingers are, you can do that then, you know? Mine looks very robotic. Yeah, I guess what we're doing now, especially if we're using like straight lines, is it might come out a little bit robotic, but hopefully you establish the basic shapes of this hand. And there's other ways of drawing hands and building up your drawings, you know, which are a bit more gestural and a bit more flowing. Okay, but I hope that that has made some sense for you guys. Why don't we try another hand? This one's actually a little bit trickier. So this one's going to be a bit harder. Mine looks like the Hulk's hand, but messed up. Well, that's pretty cool, because it looks like a hand, right? Hands are tough. I mean, everyone knows hands are really tough. So don't be too hard on yourselves, guys. Okay, so this hand is tough because it's turned to our eyes. So if you look on the reference, I'm going to draw on the reference again with these yellow lines. And I think what we can do for this one is we'll come across the top of the palm section of the hand like this. And then we could observe the curve across the knuckles again, which is kind of like that. And then again, you know, that little finger's kind of poking out from behind. So why don't we come down like this and get that curve across those knuckles. And then I guess we'll see once we start drawing, but we might be able to kind of find the volume and thickness of that knuckle there, and then build up the index finger, and then kind of find that shape there, and then add on the little finger, something like that, and then build on the thumb. That's what I'm thinking right now, but we'll see once we start drawing it. The big thing that I think we need to be wary of, again, I'm going to draw on a reference a bit, is you're going to want to make these knuckles that are back here too big and then make these ones too small. But these first two knuckles absolutely dominate what we see. And there's just a sliver of the third one, and we can't barely see the fourth one. So we're going to kind of try and capture that without making the little finger and stuff too big, and without shrinking the index finger. So let's see. Let's come across the top of the palm section there. Find that curve across the knuckles. Come down that third finger. What's that called? The wedding ring finger or whatever it's called. And then that curve across the knuckles there. And then, okay, what would be the easiest thing to do next? Why don't we come back up the index finger and just kind of find that big volume for that and a big volume for this. So we got this and this. Because that way we can make sure that we don't make those too small and then we don't make the other ones too big. Okay, I think I put that one too far down. So something like that. And then we could do the index finger. And the third one, it's like a staircase on these knuckles. So you've got the curve of them. And now that we've got that, we could see that there's like a sort of step pattern like that. So maybe we could draw that step pattern going across the knuckles. So something like that. And then find the little finger poking out from behind. And then you can see the webbing, if you look on the reference again. They're like webbing between the thumb and the palm section, and there's a sort of triangular shape there. So maybe we could put that in. And then for this thumb, I think, again on the reference, you could find these lines that go around the volumes. So and then you can actually see the tip of the middle finger back here, behind the others. Sorry, I don't get it. Oh dear. Okay. Draw on the paper where you explained on the iPad. Okay, yeah. I was kind of hoping that I was doing that. But so what we've got is the line across the top of the, wait, that's off the screen. The line across the top of that palm section, the curve around the knuckles, then coming down the finger and the next set of knuckles. So what we've got so far is that, and that. That's kind of starting us off finding this plane and this plane. And then we came up to find the index finger knuckle, which is quite big. So you can just do a big circle for that, kind of wrapping around that knuckle. And then slightly more angular for the middle finger knuckle. And then what we could perhaps do is find that step pattern across the knuckles. So that is these. We found the curve, but then there's the actual knuckles themselves. And we could finish off the index finger. And then the middle finger kind of pokes out behind the index finger, the way it's bent. and then the little finger behind everything else. Then there's a kind of triangular shape in the webbing for the thumb, and then you draw around the thumb, something like that. That one's not worked out so well, but I hope that that makes more sense. Got ya. I still have little problems with the length and proportions. Yeah, that's totally fine. We're just trying to kind of navigate this whole thing right now. So it doesn't matter if it really works as long as you kind of get what I mean about building up the hand. Not because I guess the issue is that you might draw, kind of be tempted to draw a hand like, if you imagine if you draw around a hand like this is something that our life drawing teacher Frank often talks about, is like, when you're at school and stuff, you might draw around a hand like that, but that's not the way you really want to draw a hand. And a lot of this stuff is actually from him, stuff that he's explained, which is to find these lines across the knuckles, and that being kind of the key to this whole thing. Draw larger on the paper. Yes, that is a great idea. That is a great idea. Okay, let's do it larger. Okay, so line across the top of the palm section. We're going to come down. We're going to find that curve across those knuckles. We've got these knuckles, and then come down, find the curve across these knuckles. We're going to establish the big size of the first and the second knuckle. Give it some real volume there. And then find that kind of step pattern to the knuckles. And then finish off the index finger. Find the tip of the middle finger behind. So just imagine that. You can draw right through the index finger if you want to. We can find that. You know what? I think I even made that third knuckle too big, so I'll make it even smaller. And then because kind of the key to this particular one is to make the third and the little finger really thin and tiny, because we can't see much of those. And then, so what I mean by that is the shape, if you think of these as abstract shapes, it gets very small up here for the third finger. And then for the little finger, look at what a tiny sliver we can see. And we don't want to make that too big just because we want to draw a finger. So we want to make it too big there. We want to keep that as a sliver, quite skinny, quite small, because we can't see much of it. Is that making more sense? So then there's a kind of triangle shape in the webbing of between the palm section and the thumb. And then to build up the thumb, I think it's useful to find these lines that wrap around the thumb to give it that volume. So even if you get the proportions of the thumb wrong relative to the rest of the hand, that doesn't really matter, because, you can figure that stuff out a bit, more later. But just trying to kind of get the idea of that. Finding lines that wrap around some of these forms and finding these curves that go across the knuckles being the most important things. Okay. All good. Okay. And hands are hard, huh? Now that I'm kind of here trying to explain what I'm on about, I'm feeling how tough it is. Okay. Next hand. Oh, I hope you guys are okay with shifting on to the next hand. Put the right angle of the index finger. Yes, it's going to be available after the stream, and the references are available on our website too, if you want to have another go at them. Okay, so this hand. This one, there's a bit of tension in it. I think there might be some weight on this hand or something, because you can see in the knuckles, it's a strong grip going on. And you can see in her index finger, see how it's kind of yellow there? It looks like she's really pushing there, and you can even feel the tension. If it was relaxed, I think this curve across the top of the finger would just do that. but the way that that end bit is this angle here, I feel like that really indicates tension. The way that these knuckles are sticking out like that indicates tension too, I think. Okay, sorry, Maggie just knocking the camera. All right, so for this one, again, okay, I'm going to go on the reference again. We got the curve across, George, I think you're saying the thumb, and that must be in the last one. The thumb looks like a big sausage. Yeah, that's fine though. I think right now we're just trying to like work on seeing the lines that we want to use to build up the shape. Get used to that, and then can worry about the relative proportions. Like, I don't think mine worked out all that great on the last one either. But okay, so for this one, we've got the line across the knuckles here. So one thing that we can notice is a really big S-curve all the way down. So maybe that will be a good place to start, is a really big S-curve all the way down from the forearm, down the top of the palm, all the way down the index finger. Not to the tip though, because like I said, there's an angle here, but just to this point here. And then this line across the knuckles. And then I think maybe we'll find a line coming down the middle finger, and then the line across these knuckles. And then, you know, from there we'll just start to build things up. But that will be the basics of our structure, I think. Because clearly the index finger is off on its own, and we're not going to merge it as a shape with the others. But the other three, I think we can think of them as kind of unified in that way. And then we'll look for like the side planes and stuff like that. But anyway, why don't we start with the bar, because that's going to help, right? That's just straight down. So we could start with some kind of bar, and we might end up needing to move that or something as we build up our hand, but you know, just as a starting point. And then we could do this side of the forearm, actually, just as, you know, look at that negative space as a starting point. And then we'll do what I just said, which is the big S curve, this and that. So let's see if that works. So we'll go like that. And then a big S curve. I've done that too close to the bar. There's no room for the finger. A nice big S curve all the way down the index finger. And then we'll find that curve across the knuckles and bring that line down the middle finger, and then the line across the next knuckles. Yeah? And then from here we can start to build up the fingers. So maybe this other side of the index finger, notice that it's kind of a concave shape, right? So we start from the webbing of there. Something like that. And then how about this third finger knuckle? Could bring that across. Maybe did that curve too strong. And then we can start to build up our fingers. You can either see them as abstract shapes, or you could see them as a sequence of like cylindrical shapes, or whatever you want. But the key is to have that curve across the knuckles. I think it's going to be useful on some of these, especially like this little finger again, to find that line that wraps around the knuckles, because it's a bit foreshortened, and it's going to help us think of it as a simple volume. All right. Okay, so that's all I really mean for this process. So let's try it one more time. You smart. Hey, thanks, Merv. I assume you're talking about me. Okay, so get the bar in, and then that negative space to start things off, and then the big S curve, which I think I rushed before, so try not to do that. Right, and then we got the line across the knuckles. Find the line down the middle finger to the next set of knuckles, and then find a curve across. And these are not set in stone. These are just like throwing things down to get us started. So maybe actually we could do the sort of side plane of the palm. And then we could build up the index finger and figure out these knuckles. And then again with this one, see how deep, if I go on the reference again, how deep that little finger knuckle is going into the shape of the hand. Don't want to, just because it's the little finger, doesn't mean its knuckle doesn't go deep into the hand. Find the curves around those knuckles. And even just looking at the negative space between them is really useful. Actually, the negative space between fingers is almost always really useful because you want to make clear the fact that the fingers are not stuck together, you know? Because the bones of our hands, you know, start at the wrist. And so if you can see, they kind of start fanning out from here. So by the time they're here, there's already space between them. But I think that it's very common to draw a hand like, you know, like there's no space between them. So you kind of miss the space between the fingers. And so drawing the negative space is always really, really useful. I hope you are well and your family's doing well. Well, thank you, Jehan. We are doing absolutely fine. And I hope you are too. I'm just really happy that this technology is working, but I hope that what I'm actually saying is making sense. So how do you make your lines so controlled, Elvis? Well, one thing is how you feel, like how nervous you are. I'm a little bit nervous being on a live stream, but because I draw a lot, I feel like the lines still work okay. And I've noticed that the more I'm in my own head and the more stressed I am, the more wonky the lines go. The other thing is to use this overhand grip helps. To use your whole arm helps. Doing tons of practice helps. Will this stream be uploaded afterwards? Don't have the time. Yes, it should all be saved on here. Okay, I'm going to move on to another hand, if that's okay with you guys. Should we do this one more time? Let me know in the comments if you want to do this one. I tell you what, why don't we? One thing I want to. Okay, let's do the next one, and then if we have time, we can come back to it. Okay. All right. So if you look on the reference, this one, you know, why don't we try again coming across the top of that palm and then the curve of those knuckles, then come along the index finger, curve of these. And then okay, so why don't we do this two ways? So the first way, we'll come down to the end of the first finger and we'll try and do that curve. I do feel like the index finger is a bit separate to the other ones again. So another way of doing it would be to just look at these three fingers together and do the index one separately. So why don't we do it both ways and see which one works out better. Okay. So we're going to go across the top of that palm section, do a curve across the knuckles, come down the index finger to the first knuckles and do a curve like that. So it kind of comes from that knuckle and the index finger it comes down pretty sharp to the middle finger, and then it curves off more gently. And then we'll go along the index finger to the tip of the finger, come down quite a long way to the tip of the middle finger, and then a curve to the little finger. And this part of the curve is quite sharp because the little finger is really bent away from us. So actually it's probably sharper than that. It's bent away from us and it's foreshortened. So that's hopefully kind of started us off thinking about where all this stuff is on the hand. So what we could do then is start to build up the index finger and the middle finger. So the tricky part with this is that, like, let's look at the little finger on the reference. Look how foreshortened it is, right? So it's going to be useful to find the line that goes around the knuckle here and around the knuckle here. And actually, it's probably going to be useful to find that on all those three fingers. Because the last thing we want to do is undo the foreshortening on the fingers and kind of elongate them or anything like that. So let's see if this works out. The other thing that is interesting is, like, often what you really need is the beginnings of the fingers and the ends of the fingers. And then the rest of it's not quite so important. You might not even need to draw it or pay so much attention. But if you get the knuckles, if they're bent, and if they're not bent, they don't matter that much. But if you can get the beginnings like this, how they start, and then the ends, then I think the viewer will fill in the rest. Because I think people get real concerned about drawing this, drawing this. So, whoa. Okay, just dropped everything. So concerned with, like, drawing around the fingers. And that's the thing that I really want to talk about today, about not doing. So rather than doing that, we're talking about finding the lines across the knuckles. We're talking about drawing the negative space between the fingers. And even how it's like, if you can start the finger and then draw the lines around the knuckles and the ends of them, that's the stuff that really matters. And the kind of outlines of the fingers is the last thing that's important. Like, it's just not the thing to sort of prioritize or think about, And that's really the thing that I wanted to get at today. You might hear my daughter in the background. She's real happy. She just had a nap. Okay. How are you guys doing? Let me know in the comments, and we can draw this one more time. Put your iPad on the left so that, yes. My setup right now is it's a little bit tricky, but that is a good idea. I'll probably do that next time because I'm left-handed. The outline of the fingers is the toughest. Yeah, but you don't really need to be too concerned about the outline of the fingers. All right. Okay. Should we try this one more time? This is the hardest one yet. Yeah, I know, it's deceiving, this one. It's got these foreshortened fingers. It's a deceptive one. I think this is the hardest one yet. So we're going to go across the top of the palm, find the curve across the knuckles. And you guys don't have to do exactly what I'm doing, but just this general principle. So this time, how about we go, that's the top of the index finger. How about we clump together the three fingers and keep the index one separate? So we could come down the middle finger and find the curve from the middle finger to the little finger for those first knuckles and across the tips of them. And then we can treat the index finger as kind of separate. And then all we need to do is kind of separate these. maybe made them not giving them quite little finger quite enough space. Separate them here, and then trying to avoid drawing the outline of the fingers, seeing how long I can, how much can I draw without even thinking about that, you know? Computer is messed up. So, okay, don't be surprised here. You're going to see my face. Hello. So what we could do, I'm just going with the webcam now. So what I think we could do, guys, is I'm going to do some poses with my hands, because my setup here with the camera is disconnected from the computer. So I'm going to do some poses with my hands, and I'll put a little timer up, and we're going to do some quick sketches. So we could do them to 2 minutes each. See ya. See you later, bye. Okay, I'm going to do some poses with my hands, which are a bit dirty here. And I'm going to, wait, don't worry, I'm going to restart the clock. And it's going to be a 2-minute pose. And you just got to draw my hand. Guys, this is my quick thinking, solution-wise, for saving the last 10 minutes of this session. It's probably distracting having my head in there, so I'll put my head over here. Okay, I'll try and keep it still. So what, all you need to establish is the lines across the knuckles, like these 3 fingers here as one, index finger separate. Between the index finger and the 3, there's negative space, so you want to find that. But these 3, that can become one plane in your drawing. Okay, and I'm going to try and read your comments. Okay, yeah, so next time I need to do the drawings bigger. It's just, basically I changed camera, and the old camera was super zoomed in, and I had to draw small on the live streams. And then the new one is more zoomed out, but I'm still drawing small on the live stream. Okay, you guys have 50 seconds left, and then I'm going to change pose. Okay, it sounds like some of you guys felt like the process was a bit confusing, so I would love it if you can let me know. Give me that feedback about how it's gone, whether by email or whatever, or comment on the video. Just give me some feedback about it, and let me know if it was confusing in terms of presentation or content, or if it was good. And I'll try and fix the technical stuff. Okay, your hand will hurt. So I'm only doing 2 minutes. Okay, you guys, that's the end of this one. So let's do, okay, I definitely can only hold this up here for 2 minutes. Okay, so again though, notice that this is one plane across the fingers here. That's one plane. So you can find a line across the top of those knuckles and the bottom of those knuckles to create one plane. And then the thumb is going to be something that's kind of sticking into that shape. Okay. Do you host these regularly? I try and do one a week. And I'm going to try and set it at the same time every week, maybe Saturdays rather than Sundays. And just because otherwise I kind of put it off a bit. I need to get my head out. Move my head. I wasn't expecting to be doing this, guys, so I hope it's tidy in here. Explanation good, just need to practice. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, it's tricky. Maybe I'll do a tutorial about it so that it's all concise and in one place. Ramona, I dislike drawing hands, but with this method I'll try to do it more often. Yeah, drawing hands is awesome. And this method that Frank told me really helps, I think. But it does take a little bit to get used to. Okay, cool. Okay, my shoulder is starting to ache, so we have 10 seconds left, which is awesome. We'll try and do a two-hand pose next. And then that might be the last one to see out the hour. Okay, let's do reset. Now let's try and think of another one. Okay. So again, you can find lines. Oops, sorry. You can find lines across those knuckles, and I can't get my head out of the way for this one. But you can find lines across those knuckles on both hands and across the fingertips on the top hand to start to build up your drawing. And don't worry too much about outlines around individual fingers, but finding lines that go across them. And also on this hand that's like more horizontal, wrapping around the other one, look for the negative space between the fingers. They're not all squashed together. There's negative space there. Okay, that's 1 minute. All right. I should have thought this through because I can't really point things out because both of my hands are tied up. It's quite tricky lighting this way because I've got lights on both sides. But hopefully not really too concerned about the shading on these, yeah? It's more just kind of finding the planes that we're seeing. All right, so we're almost done with today's session. And I think I'm going to make a tutorial about this so that everything I've said is like explained in a really clear fashion in 10 minutes to refer back to. Okay. Okay, that's done. Whew. Not what I was thinking of to end the session, but I hope it was all right. So guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the practice session. Sorry for any technical problems. And we'll do another one next weekend. And I don't know what it's going to be about yet. But, you know, if you want to do hands again, if you want to just do this again, we can do it again. And I'll try and think of ways of explaining it more clearly. Or we could do like the back muscles or something like that. And I'll just do a tutorial about hands. So anyway, give me your feedback and take care and keep drawing, and I'll see you guys next time.